I'm president of the Denver County Historical Society, and I'm just going to say that, and I wish you would all become members. And go to uchs.org. You can join Crusade now and go to UCHS. Good projects coming in. This is jointly with the Denver County Historical Society, Laura Library, and Angel Mounds. And just some money. So, the person who's done the organizing here is Tom Lombard. He's one of the board of directors of the society. I guess you're the program director. Over here in the slide. It's like you told me I was.
You missed the meeting.
And then, Greg, you want to say something about the library itself, right? Greg Hayes, he's on the board. He's also the director of this library.
Yeah, I'd like to welcome everybody to our fairly new edition, coming up on a year we've been open in this new part of the facility. At all of our programs, any motor program, we always have books available for you to check out. The same is true this evening. We do have 2 carts in the back of the room and a cart outdoors, south right outside these doors. Feel free to browse those materials and take them home back if you'd like. We have to check them out first, but you can take them home after. So, have a good time, enjoy the show, and I'll turn it over to you guys.
I'm Tom Lombard. I'm also on the board of the Denver County Historical Society. It's a real honor to introduce Mike this evening. Frances Martin. I worked at the Evansville Museum during the day. She worked at the Evansville Museum years ago. A lot of good stories about Frances Martin, museum-wise, but we're going to hear about Frances Martin, Angel Mounds tonight. Mike Linderman has been at Angel Mounds since 1999 inside, and is the Western Regional Manager for State Historic Sites, overseeing Angel Mounds, New Harmony, Vincennes, Corden, and the T.C. Steele State Historic Site. So Mike must put a lot of miles on the tires. And Mike previously worked for the Lanier Mansion State Historic Site in Madison and its T.C. Steele State Historic Site in Brown County. Most importantly, Mike is married to a family. Mike's wife is Kate, the branch manager of the Red Bank and West Branch of the Evansville Public Library. And they have 2 daughters, Mary Rachel, who's 13, and Josephine is 10. And I think we're all excited to hear more about Frances Martin, more about Angel Mounds, and the exciting projects that went on during her time there. Mike, okay, it's all yours. Thank you.
This is going to be my very first talk on Frances, so this could go any way, who knows tonight. And I kind of want to do these programs to get more information from the community about Frances as well. Frances was a very private individual from everyone I've talked to. And it's been like finding hen's teeth, trying to find out information on Frances. Let's see here. And we apologize, my PowerPoint on the state computer is not jiving with the PowerPoint here at Willard Library, so there's some things a little screwed up here. Frances was born in Indianapolis. She was very active in the Girl Scouts up there, camp counselor, things like that. Got into archery in Girl Scouts. Graduated from Butler in 1938 and started going to archery competitions where she met her husband George, who was 15 years her senior. George lived here in Evansville. He worked for Keller Crescent. He was a lithographer. Is that the way? Or do I say lithographer, as they say down here? So they got married in 44. Frances moved down from Indianapolis. They had this long-distance relationship. And she worked at Republic Aviation during the war. When the war was over, Frances basically became a housewife. But somewhere in there, she met Glenn Black out at Angel Mounds and got into the world of archaeology. Today, Frances would be called an avocational archaeologist. She had no formal training in archaeology, but she was learning from, at the master's feet out there at Angel Mounds with Glenn Black. And Frances, she worked at Angel Mounds, and I'm going to show you a bunch of other locations in this region that she worked. These slides were given to us about 15 years ago by her niece, Lynn Scooby, who lives up in Martinsville. Upon Frances' death, Lynn came down here, took all that kind of stuff with her back to Martinsville, and then, like I said, I've been at Angel about 2 years, and the box showed up full of slides that pertain to archaeology. There's also, I am told, 6,000 more slides in Martinsville that pertain to her and George's travels around the United States, their archery competitions they went to, museums and other archaeological sites they went to around the United States. And I'm working on that. That's going to be a huge intern project if I get all of that. Get down here and get it scanned. But the slide I'm going to show you tonight probably have not been seen by the public in 40 or 50 years. We scanned them all that we have in our possession now so that we can do this program again and talk a little bit more about Frances herself. Frances is very well respected in the world of archaeology, especially for a woman. Several years ago, the Department of Natural Resources Archaeology Month featured her and I think 3 other female archaeologists that trained in Indiana and worked in Indiana. And like I said, Frances had no formal training. This was all off the cuff, and in the end, she was one of the tops here in the state. This is Frances, graduated from Butler in 1938, and that's George, about the same time period. Now this is a cool picture, and I tell you this because I just got this last week. We are in the process of acquiring all of Glenn Black's personal effects, his photo albums, his slides, and I have them in Angel Mounds right now, and this is a picture inside George and Frances' house, and that's Ida Black with her back to us there. But apparently the Franceses were really big into mid-century modern furniture. They're very hip by today's standards. Yeah. But that's George and Frances on the couch. You'll see Frances with a cigarette quite a lot in these photographs, as you will see everybody else. This is in their basement at their home over in Newburgh. She was getting artifacts from the digs that she was doing on her own. These are not Angel Mounds artifacts. That all remained at the site. George is usually the one doing the photography, but when we go through the rest of the program, you'll see very few pictures of Frances, so that means George is the one taking the photographs. But they, did these very nice slides and photographs in the basement of their house in Newburgh. And then they would draft their friends to come over and help them put artifact numbers on all the pieces that they were recovering. The curtains are pretty cool there. The chairs and the dinette, yeah. Just another shot of some of the things they had in the basement. And some of the pottery George and Frances had. They also had a lot of pottery from the Southwest. They would travel out there every year to the Four Corners area. Upon Frances' death, all the pottery went to the Glenn Black Lab of Archaeology in Bloomington, as per her wishes and her will, as well as a lot of her journals and things of that nature. I have 2 of her journals that came with a slide collection. And for someone who's doing this kind of on the side, she's very detailed in everything she does. And Tom can attest to the fact that Frances' writing was extremely small. And Tom tells a really good story about the Civil War cannonballs. Yeah. You wanna tell that story real quick?
Well, sure, Bill. Frances, the story at the museum was that, and this was years ago, we don't practice this way anymore, but that she thought we had too many Civil War cannonballs in the collection, and the story was that she disposed of some of them out in the river. And we ran across a card at one point that said Civil War cannonball disposed of in Ohio River. We don't do that anymore, but sometimes some archaeologists will come across those and they battle with them and stuff.
I missed Frances by, I think, 3 weeks. She passed away before I started at Angel Mounds, so I never got to meet her. But I was told she was a no-nonsense kind of lady. And talking to her niece, she told me some great stories about her and George would go out west. And they always had to buy a Plymouth station wagon. It was a 6-cylinder, no AC or no radio, because they wanted to be as efficient as they possibly could have it. They wouldn't stop at restaurants. They carried Spam, sardines, crackers, and baked beans in a can. And that's all they would eat on their trips. George would get home exactly at 5:25 every day. She would have supper ready for him. They'd go to bed at 9, and she would stay awake till 1, because George wanted to go to bed at 9, so she would sit there and read. And then, one of the funny stories is, when her lipsticks got down so low, she would dig all the lipstick out and then melt them back into a new mold and put them in a new holder. She would not get rid of anything. The niece said that there were boxes and boxes of gas station receipts from all over the United States. They kept everything. And in the museum world, that's something you like. When you inherit all this after someone's death, it's a whole other story. Really went on with that. Sometime in the 50s is when Frances started messing around at Angel Mounds. And thankfully, she did. The two journals I have, I actually refer back to these journals about once a month. And one of the great things in it, she drew a map of the Angel property, how it was divvied up in 1938 when Eli Lilly bought it in the name of the Indiana Historical Society. She has the property owner's name, she has the acreage for each one, and how much the state or how much Eli paid each owner for that tract of land. It also says, and if you've heard my other talks, Eli Lilly was able to get $127 from the people of Evansville to help pay for the purchase of that property. This is the Great Depression, though, so don't hold them to account for that. Just jump into some of the pictures. This is the early 1950s. Dig out at the site. Kind of associate yourself. The visitor center is through those trees there now across the slough. This is same time period. These are actually maple syrup processing pits. Glenn thought they were some kind of grape situation, and then some old guy came over and said, "Oh no, we would light fires in these and process the maple syrup down through each pit, cool it gradually," which was a big deflate for Glenn Black. This is one of the things I thank Frances for the most. She photographed all the WPA buildings that were at Angel Mounds. And this was the laboratory. In the late 1970s, the state of Indiana said that whole complex was an eyesore, and either tore it down or burned it down. And 4 years ago now, we got a grant from Alcoa to rebuild this building. And if it was not for her photographs of this building, we would not have a good representation of what that was, or the way it looked out there. I mean, that's one of the things you don't think about. Why would I take pictures of all these old buildings at that time? That's just another shot over there where the WPA buildings were. This was quick archaeology at Angel Mounds. This is a sad story. The state of Indiana still owned that tract up until about 10 years ago. It had been transported from Angel Mounds to our Wilbur Wright birthplace site, and then we found out it wasn't Wilbur Wright's birthplace, so we got rid of the building and the tract at that point. But there's Dr. Black over there on the left-hand side of the photograph. And Frances was capturing things that you just weren't going to take time to take a photograph. Black took plenty of technical photographs on the site, but Frances was taking the everyday activities on the site. And this was Black making one of his films he made about the site in the old photo lab building on the property. There's Frances over on the far left, and this is in one of the old barracks that the IU students stayed in at the site. Near Dr. Black in the background. She was also kind of, I don't know if you call her an activist or not. This was the mound that's across the street from our front gate, our Hopewell era mound. And she was incensed that the locals were using it for their dirt bikes and hiking over the top of it. And this was some of her photographic evidence of what was happening to that mound. She would love me because we got to stop after I got there.
Where are the trees?
We took all the trees. Actually, all those trees, this is a sideline, but the state contracted a logger from Fort Wayne, Indiana, hauled all those trees back to Fort Wayne from here. George, he would help out there in the field also with the surveying of the property. He also would help with the magnetometry, which was the science of actually seeing what was below the ground based on the disturbances there. So he and Glenn would sit around and work on that as well. Now here we are in the 1970s, and the clothing of the students has changed greatly. I hadn't even seen this in the 1990s and on. It was the free love time there in Angel Mounds, Indiana. about 1975 when this was taken there. It must have been warm that day. Francis has the only photographs of the dedication of the interpretive center that I've ever seen. If you look at this photograph, this is Herman Wells, the chancellor at IU. There's Eli Lilly. And then on the far side of the podium is Governor Brannigan, who was not the governor at the time. And then Governor, who's the governor? He's still alive. He's the oldest living governor. Whitman was there. But that was in October of '72 there. The Harrison High School band came out and played for that. And this is actually at that same time, and that's the WPA buildings as they start to fall into disrepair. You can see there some of the roofs are coming off up when they're all grown up in the weeds. That's it for the angel sites, or slides. This is a smattering of what I'm going to show you from here on out. Some of these sites' names are not familiar today because I was telling Mike Struzeski, they go by numbers now. They don't retain these old names like they used to, based on the property owners and things like that. This is one of the most impressive things I've seen in this collection. This is the Branchville Rock Shelter. Can you see how big the rock shelter is there? I sent these photographs to the U.S. Forest Service because they own most of that land around Branchville to see if they knew where this location was, and they said they have never seen a rock shelter that big on any of their property. It's enormous. And so I got hold of the Branchville prison, and they think they know where this is. It's just off of the state prison property, and they're trying to get me some access to the grounds so we can see. I use research as a reason to go see something cool. It won't benefit this program at all in the future, but I can say I went to the Branchville Rock Shelter. There's Glenn Black over on the right. And actually, the poster I was telling you about with Francis on it is a picture of her in the rock shelter, squeezed back into a little hole like this. I think that's Glenn there in the middle.
Did they find artifacts?
Yeah, they did. Don't ask me what they were. It was nothing spectacular. This would have been a campsite, basically, at that time. In her little book, this is all listed as a Posey County mound. I have no idea where this mound is located. Does it look familiar to anybody familiar with Posey County? There's another shot of it. If it's too far south of Mount Vernon, I'm too afraid to go down there, so I don't know if it's down there or not. I would say it's closer down to Point Township, the oil well that you see off in the distance there. And there's a picture of Frances out there that day. Her niece always said she never went out without a hat on. She always has a hat. And usually blue jeans. This, if you're familiar with that trestle, that is going to the bridge that crosses into Henderson. Are you familiar with that number, Mike? The VGX8?
No.
Yeah, we're talking, the X is the problem here, is it? You're not familiar with X's and the site numbers?
No, that's not a standard site number.
Yeah. But it's a cool picture of a steam engine actually going across the trestle. Yeah, Marge?
Are there dates on these slides?
No, because I went back to verify that because I knew someone like you would ask me that tonight. If there's a date, I'll know, but there were no dates on these. I'm assuming this is early 50s when this was taken. This is just their surface walking the sites down in that area. So we're basically down in the Dogtown area, or between Dogtown and the train trestle that crosses over into Henderson. Down where you drop off dead bodies after dark, down there. I have no idea what this is. It's a cool car in the picture there.
So the identification, is that yours?
No, that's what Francis put on the slides.
But is there a key to it?
There should be a key for this, don't you think? Angel is VG1, of course, because we're the biggest and the best. So I don't know, would that be considered VG3?
Yeah.
Ideally?
Sometimes people have their own site numberings.
Yeah, well, Frances used to go out and do site surveys also for the state. We got some photocopies of her survey that she did all over the area. Alright, this is Crib Mound. That's its most popular name. It was also known as the Roth site in Corn Island. This is upriver from Tell City. Am I correct in that?
It's close to Grandview.
Okay.
Not too far east of Grandview.
Okay. There's not much left of the Crib Mound site. There's a coal plant or coal transfer station on top of the mound.
Yeah.
But what Glenn is standing on are shells left over from the site occupation.
From what I heard, Mike, there's a muscle mound.
That's what this is. And there's where he got the name Crib Mound. That's the corn crib that sits up above it there. But you can see the beach full of shells right down there also. And there's Francis in the bank of the river there, and you can see it just littered with shell material. And that's not natural deposit, that's deposited by people. Here she is with her Chesterfield. We're looking upriver now. That's a lot of shell material laying there. The other famous big deposit Crib Mound was cash plates. They're about that big usually. How many were there? There's thousands of them. Yeah, Crib Mound. This picture I actually got from IU. This is the only picture they have of Francis at the Glen Black Lab. But that's Crib Mound also. This is the Heavy Lake site. This is down near where the entrance to what used to be the old entrance to the Heavy Lake building or the office down there, which is now gone. But this is this is the 70s also, I'm pretty sure.
Which one's Cheryl?
Is Cheryl there?
I don't know.
Don't throw me off like that. Just the thing going on there, Heavy Lake. And then here's Man's site. This was under the direction of Dr. Keller, who succeeded Glenn Black after Black's death. And there were 3 or 4 digs at Man. There was 2 in the late 60s and 2 in the early 70s. This is obviously one of the 70s era digs. And there's Dr. Keller. When I met him, he was bald as a cue ball, so this was really strange. He had no mustache or anything like that. But you can see how the layers are in the field there, all the different occupation levels at Man's site. And if you've heard me talk about Man, it's a whole other ball of wax, and that's a whole other lecture. Man's site again. So actually that ridge, that hump you're looking at is actually one of the mounds at Man's site. It's just huge. Just another one of those shots looking down for the deposits. Yes, sir.
That's particular excavation at Man, they found a Mississippian house in that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This is Charlie Lacer, by the way. If you've been out to our Man site exhibit we had 4 or 5 years ago, he's the man who was responsible for collecting all that material. He's an old legend. This is Man site again. You can see all the mounds off in the distance there. Actually, is that the road going down to the bottoms, Charlie? Is that Indian Mound Road that drops down to the bottom, where they cut the mound in half there? I don't know.
I'm not really sure.
You heard it here, ladies and gentlemen.
Those mounds, they look like they are east of the
It
road.
does, unless the slide is backwards.
Yeah. Yeah, this would be where the road was gonna be. But there was actually 5 burial mounds on that side of the road,
Oh, okay.
on the east side of it. And there was at least 3 on the other side.
And these are probably yours, aren't they, Charlie?
Yeah.
I think Francis used to go bother Charlie a lot and take pictures of the things he had. Is that true? Did Francis come over to your house a lot and photograph your stuff?
Oh, yeah. I've had about 400 fragments.
Yeah. And according to her slide, this is man's site as well. This one I'm not too familiar with. I assume it's at the Falls of the Ohio. That's the train bridge at Louisville and Clarksville. And according to the slide, that is a Pleistocene piece of wood sticking out of the riverbank there at Clarksville. Which makes me think we're talking about Falls of the Ohio area right in here. Now this is right next door to Angel Mounds. If you come to the front gate, it's 2 houses over from the front gate. And what happened, I think this was in 1959, Mr. Shoulders was trying to make a basement under his house. And he hit some stuff he wished he hadn't hit. And Glenn Black was not home that night. He got someone else in there, and that's a whole other story. But Glenn and Francis and George came in the next day and documented what was being exposed there in the basement of the Shoulders house. That is a slate-lined grave that's all busted open there. And there's George taking some measurements. And then this is down where the dam is south of Hovey Lake, before there was a dam south of Hovey Lake. And you can see in the profile of the wall the different bands here. And this one, it took me a little bit to figure out. She called it a pit. You can see it right here. It's been exposed from the river erosion. Just another profile looking out from the river. So I think that's essentially where the dam is today, where that marker is on the river. That's quite a bluff. You can see how small she is down below there. Yankeetown is up at Yankeetown, and oh boy, just escaped me what those are called. What are those hollowed out areas that are exposed there so often in the riverbank? Oh, come on. I got you archaeology people here for a reason. Yeah. That's not a natural feature. That's something man-made. I think it was some kind of pit under a house, if I'm not mistaken. And the river just washed it in half. There's the Ohio in the background from the Yankeetown site. I've been out to the Yankeetown dig once, and I took our oldest daughter with me, and it was in August, and we got in the car, and my daughter said, "Daddy, don't ever bring me back here again." It was the most miserable day. There's no breeze, there was nothing out there. "Daddy, don't ever bring me here again." And that was found at the Yankeetown site.
What's that made from?
That's pottery. It kind of looks like a skull, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's
it's pottery. And I believe these are Yankeetown pieces also. Obviously, you have a modern doll head down here in the lower corner.
George and Francis found that larger piece.
Okay. And that must be in was in your collection. Now, this is the Ray site. It took me, I was telling Mike Struzeski over there, I called Indianapolis to the Department of, or the Division of Historic Preservation and Archaeology. So where was the Ray site? Well, they're so used to everything having a number now, they don't retain the old family names for the property. But this is actually, if you're familiar with Yankeetown, there's the old steel bridge down at the bottom of the hill as you go into the bottom. This is the hilltop before you drop down into the bottom there. Still up there on the hilltop. Now, this was a dig obviously done by Glenn Black and his field school students. That old truck, the students called it Lula, and it had a cage around it, and Some of the older students I talked to said he would take them all the way down to Clarksville, Tennessee in the back of that truck. And they would go through these little towns on 41 and they looked like circus monkeys going through town. Everybody was staring at them. And a funny thing, I found a letter of Glenn Black's up at the Glenn Black lab when he said he finally got rid of that old truck, and that was in 1960, I think. He made those kids suffer in that thing all that time. This is up there at the race site also. I don't know if that'd be OSHA approved, that kind of a dig now.
No egress, no.
No harness or anything. There's Glenn with his Chesterfield hanging out of his mouth. That made him cool. Newburgh people recognize this. This is the overlook over the locking dam at Newburgh. And but they're not a house up there, a big house. Okay. All right. I've never seen a photograph of the house.
We have a bunch, we got the house.
It's like a southwestern house,
Was it?
yeah.
They moved in 65 or 66, bro.
Okay. Is that how the dam went in?
Well, but the house stayed there for a while.
Okay. Well, I think these are pictures of when they were putting in the restrooms up there. Francis went up there to photograph the trenches across the top of the hill there. So I think actually we're looking down towards the locking dam, or where the locking dam is. I think that's the Ohio right here.
Yeah.
Is that where they found a lot of shell?
Yeah, and then here. You can see it in the profile wall there, the shell. And then here's this dump over here on Riverside. This is your new exhibit, isn't it, Don? I'm not from Evansville, so I thought some of these were interesting, especially this next set. Here they are bringing the train in. And that's tracks laid on Riverside.
67.
67?
And there's the Sahadi Shrine in McCurdy. And I didn't know this, it was originally parked next to the pagoda, was it not? And then they moved it over.
This is true.
Yeah.
Yeah, for years is that there.
Yeah. Yeah, there it is, next to the pagoda. And then Francis died, November of '99. I showed up the weekend after Thanksgiving. That's how close I was to getting close to her. But you see, George's middle name was Francis also, with the I, not the E. There's been a big debate between me and the organizers here. I automatically would put an I in there all the time to get the E. And then that's Francis at crib now. Muggy for the camera. I think that's all I got for right now. Like I said, I'm open for listening to people's stories about Francis. If you got questions about Francis that I can maybe answer, hopefully this program will expand the more and more we get into it. And once I get hold of those 5,000 other slides that are hiding up in Martinsville, maybe more will come out of this.
Hey, what does she have there?
It looks like a cow bone or something.
That doesn't sound very.
Yeah, I know. That's a mastodon femur sticking out there.
It might be.
It could be. I tell the story, some guy came to me, he was with a big blue cooler, and he said, I want you to look at this bone. And he pulled it out and it was this long. He said, is this a cow's bone? And I said, I hate to see the cow it came off of. And it was a mastodon femur sticking out of the bank over in Posey County. Yes, sir.
Francis and George also went over into Posey County and would take rods and they'd go through the Black River creek beds looking for mastodon bones and recovered several over the years.
Well, verify this story for me. The Ellerbush site, which sits behind where George and Francis lived in Newburgh,
Yes.
she encouraged the boys to dig up a mastodon in that field. Is that a true story?
I can't document that particular story. She encouraged them to dig for artifacts there, and unfortunately...
Which we don't encourage people to do anymore.
That was a cattle pasture for quite a number of years, and the urea from the cattle dissolved a lot of the bone material in that particular area.
He was very
Their house was where Crestview off of Newburgh Road made a 90-degree turn to the west. If you just continued straight, you went up their driveway, past the Stag Home, which is where we grew up at, and their house was behind there.
Where's the bar?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, Marge.
Did all her collections go up to IU, and that would include mastodon bones and things like that?
As far as I know, but I was not present when all that was happening, so I don't know. Mike, you were there probably at that
I
time.
picked up the collections with Rex.
Okay.
They brought them back to you.
Yeah.
But as I was talking to Charlie, a lot of the documents didn't make it up there.
Yeah.
There were some that I actually mailed up there at a later date when we were cleaning out our house. That went up there. Also some site maps from the surrounding area and just pottery that had just literally pieces of pottery prior to being formed into any object that had just fallen into fire pits. They had a whole collection of that scattered around also. And they were just things that weren't even initially taken up there, that were sent up at a later date.
Her niece told me this story, and Tom may know this or may not know this, but when she got old and was very ill and was hospitalized, the niece came down to visit her, and she said, I need you to go to the house, and on George's bed, there's an envelope, and I don't want you to open it, but I want you to take it to the Evansville Museum immediately and give it to, she said a woman, down to the museum. And what it was, according to the niece, was Crazy Horse's tobacco bag. And that Frances had taken it home to redo the beadwork on it and forgot about it. And she didn't want to die in the hospital with that bag still sitting there in the house.
Well, I'll have to look at that.
Yes?
Do you have any plans on bringing their collection back and share with the people of Southern Indiana?
Francis Martin?
Yes.
I don't have any control over what the Glenn Black Lab does with those things. And I don't exactly know what they have. I know they got the pottery and the artifacts, but I don't know what that consisted of. But that is something we could look into. Definitely.
Yeah, I don't know what the arrangements are, why it's her wish to send it up to IU.
Yeah, it was Francis's wish.
And there's a reason for that. Frances wanted to go, she told me she wanted to go to IU, but her father would not let her leave Indianapolis. So she went unwillingly to Butler and graduated, but had she had her wishes, she would have been at IU.
Okay.
Did she always want to study archaeology?
Oh, no, I don't think.
She had a business administration degree, I believe, from Butler.
Mike, I'm
Yes.
interested in this basement, 2 houses down.
Uh-huh.
Can you just continue to dig his basement?
Yeah, he finished his basement off.
Yeah, a little spooky.
Oh, yeah, very poltergeist, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you think there's anything else around there?
I've heard horror stories about when they constructed the neighborhood to the west or east of Angel Mound, where they were the construction workers were told you don't see anything, you just throw it right back in the hole if you hit something. I've heard that story. Yeah.
There are other stories about things that were found in the homes that were built along the ridge in Newburgh also.
Oh yeah, I
And Johnny Grimm was one of the farmers down in that area that owned property that was in his family. And he would tell me about they'd be plowing up the ground in the spring and plow up Indian bones and the slate burial sites and things, and they just have to dig a hole and bury them back down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they could continue to farm and earn a living. So
Dennis Al sent me a newspaper article from around 1900, I think, and it was from Mr. Angel saying, if anybody's interested in Indian relics, come on out. I got them all over the field. Just come out and pick them up. So who knows what walked off of our property over the years. It's a whole new mentality, different mentality today.
It's like especially on good, you go out there and just walk the fields and.
Yeah.
Times.
Yeah.
Did she have any professional contact relationship with you or other?
It's funny you should say that, because something happened last week that it's kind of fulfilled something I've tried for years to do. 15 years ago, we tried to find Glenn Black's nieces by his wife up in Indianapolis. And we got hold of the niece, and she said, my sister got all of the Black's personal possessions, and she threw it all away. And so for 15 years, I thought I was looking into a black hole there, literally. And 4 or 5 months ago, the Glenn Black lab and Angel, I was contacted by a great niece who said, I have all of Glenn Black's personal effects. And I said, well, that can't be. I was told it was thrown away. She said that was my aunt who was in a fight with my mother, and she lied to me. And so last Thursday, we made a mad dash to Indianapolis, and I have all of Glenn's photos and slides. I have his roll-top desk. I have got some really cool stuff that I thought was lost. But in the photographs that I started scanning, and my flash drive got corrupted and it's all lost now, that I can do it again, are pictures of Francis and Eli Lilly and the Blacks hanging out. That's what I wanted so bad to see Eli Lilly and Glenn Black just hanging out. And I got my wish finally. So yes, Francis knew Eli and all of that.
So were they hanging out in Newburgh or?
There's pictures of them in my living room because I live in Glenn Black's house. We're not going to redecorate though, based on what we see there. But the photo, they go back to 39 when Black moved into the house, and it's been a real eye-opener for us. One of the cool things, a lot of you may be familiar with the Prehistoric Antiquities of Indiana book that Lilly wrote in 1937. I've seen many copies of it, and they go for like $200-300 a piece. We're going through these boxes, and there's this leather-bound edition of it I have never seen in my entire life. And I opened it up, and the cover said from Eli to Glenn. So it may be a one of a kind. The other cool thing, when you were a student of Glenn Black's on a dig, you became a member of what was called the Trowel and Brush Society. And you got these little golden medallions. They had the viewing man on it and a trowel. They were solid gold, and the Historical Society would make them for the students. A former student gave or loaned us one so we could make a mold of it. And so we were up there at this great niece's house, and I said, have you ever seen one of these? And she said, well, let me go through Aunt Ida's jewelry box. She pulled out Ida's charm bracelet, and one says Glenn A. Black, and one says Ida Black on the back of them. And I got those. I've been on cloud 9 for about a week. Yes?
Do you know how many copies of the four-spar statue were made?
I've heard 2. That's
what
not...
Francis told me. That there were 2 copies. You're talking about the angel figurine?
There's different versions. There's plaster casts and there's resin casts.
I'm sorry, this is plaster cast.
Okay.
Original plaster cast.
I've seen 4 plaster casts.
Have you?
Yes.
Okay.
And I've seen 2 resin. We have one of the I've seen 3 resin casts. We have one, the lab at Bloomington has one, and there's one on Eli Lilly's desk at the corporate headquarters where they recreated his office.
The plaster ones?
No, this is a resin cast.
Do you think it's possible that one of the original plaster casts was recast?
Possibly. Because they're not as detailed as the resin casts, I'll say that.
Yeah, because Francis actually told me that Glenn instructed her to make 2 copies of that in plaster and keep one for herself.
Yeah. That's all. I don't know how many they were chugging out.
and then destroy the rubber mold.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Marjorie.
When I was a kid, I would ride my bike out to Angel Mounds and knock on the gate. Glenn usually wasn't there, but the caretaker would let me in. And they still had the statue wrapped in cloth in a coffee can in the safe. And the caretaker would take it and let me look at it if I put my hands behind my back. And it was very glittery and bright. And the other story I have is I was going up the Glenn Black Lab steps when I was a graduate student, and there was Keller coming down the steps with a briefcase chained to his arm, and he had the statue in it, and he was taking it off to be copied. And even so, they were so afraid that somebody might take it, that they, he
Well, we
was
bring the
literally
kneeling-
chained to it.
When we bring the kneeling man to Angel Mound for a special event, he gets a police escort from Bloomington. He gets a specially made case that he's brought down in, and then we have conservation officers on site the entire time he's there. So we don't keep him very long, maybe for a week, and then we send him back up there.
Where was he found?
He was found in the Temple Mound in 1940, I believe.
He resides in the art museum.
Last time I saw him, he was in the lab. They were doing some kind of testing on him, light testing. But I haven't asked what's going on. Yes, sir.
I used to have a book, kind of like the ones out here on the shelf that my 6th grade teacher gave me. Because I'm a farm boy and I used to walk the fields from time to time behind a mule and I'd pick up something.
Yeah.
That picture that, I think what you're talking about here is the figurine of the man kneeling with yes. I've often wondered, what's the origin of that material? It's not really the kind of material you would find around this part.
It's yellow fluorite, and what I've been told is the nearest large outcropping is around Garden of the Gods. There's yellow fluorite and purple fluorite. But that's a big piece. It's unusual. Even the people I know that the Garden of the Gods area said that's a huge chunk of it. So he may not be from there, but that's the closest we know of an outcropping that I've been told.
Don't you think maybe that might have come from that area?
It may have. And you know, the kneeling man figure, the style, that design, there's 4 or 5 versions of that you'll find throughout this part of the United States. There's a sandstone version. We have the only crystal type statue. But the kneeling position and all that is similar on these 4 others, or 3 others, I can't remember how many.
There's a number of them throughout the South.
Yeah.
Some of them have cross-legged, and the others are kneeling. But they're fairly simple.
Yeah. He was their mascot. Yeah.
One of my favorite stories from Francis, in going through my grandparents' stuff, I had found a sandstone egg.
Oh, yeah.
And I showed it to Francis and asked her what it was or what it was used for. And she said that once in a while we ran into something that we couldn't explain, and we just chalked it up to the village idiot.
I'll leave you with my favorite Francis Martin stories. Susie Williams used to be the treasurer for the Friends of Angel Mound. She was a bank manager in Newburgh, and when Frances got older, she couldn't drive, so she would call Susie to bring her in to do her banking. And Susie said, I called her Mrs. Martin for years, and she said about 3 months before she died, she put her hand on my knee and she said, you may now call me Francis. Yes?
Before you stop, can you tell us a little bit about Charlie Glacier's collection you're going to have out to Angel Mounds? And,
on March 19th, we are going to bring down some of Charlie's stuff and some other pieces from the southwest part of Indiana, and a couple other pieces that normally have not been on display from the State Museum ever. And so we're going to bring it down for a one-night-only show, which is the night before the Boonville Artifact Show. So that's why we're doing it in conjunction with that. So you'll start to see some notices about that here pretty soon. There's some pretty cool stuff we're going to be bringing down. The State Museum has a lot of cool stuff. A lot of it we're not allowed to show anymore because it was associated with burials. But we're going to bring stuff down that is allowed to be shown. There'll be pretty cool stuff. But watch, and we'll,
the Panther Pipe?
No, not bringing the Panther Pipe.
I was under the understanding it was going to try to be made.
That's a political thing we're going to try to handle carefully and see if we can get it permanently brought back to Indiana. The Panther Pipe is an artifact that was found at Man's site. And I always tell people it looks like the Panthers that used to have on your TV sets in the 50s, but it's a pipe. And it's in the Brooklyn Museum of Art currently. It's been there for a long time.
It's still Boston?
Brooklyn, yeah. So we are going to try to make a concerted effort, since this is the bicentennial year for Indiana, to see how tight they're holding on to that and if they get it back. Anything else? I've made half of this up. All right.
Yeah.